Please welcome Noah Galloway.
Mental health is as important as your physical health, and we should constantly, as men, be working to improve ourselves.
Today's episode is an absolute must-listen. Our guest, Noah Galloway, brings raw honesty and powerful insights to the table. As a combat veteran, father, and mental health advocate, Noah opens up about his incredible journey.
There's a saying, every storm runs out of rain, and going into a mental health journey is going into the eye of the storm. But the only way you can heal is to do it. Do not compare your trauma. Dive into your own trauma and realize things.
From navigating trauma and shame to redefining modern masculinity, this conversation is filled with real talk about anger, healing, and the courage it takes to improve yourself for those you love.
I'm going to go into this darkness and I'm going to come out better for it. When someone upsets you, your anger only affects you. It doesn't even affect them. You and I, Marc, could go through the exact same thing and it not traumatize you, but it can traumatize me. So our reactions to it are going to be different, and how we deal with it are going to be different. I can be a gentle man and still defend and protect those around me.
Have you ever wondered what masculinity even is in the modern era? Are you ready to move beyond the macho bully or the soy boy archetypes? I'm Marc Azoulay, and this is the Men's Therapy Podcast. Together, we'll explore how neuroscience, Jungian psychology, and Buddhist philosophy can transform your life, your marriage, and your business. Are you ready to deep dive into the minds of men? Let's begin. Hello, welcome back to the Men's Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Marc Azoulay, and I'm here with a very special guest, Noah Galloway. He's a veteran that really focuses on mental health for men. He's in the Army, he's a Purple Heart winner, and he's a speaker and coach where he helps guys just kind of figure out what's going on, right? And I think you're really good because it helps veterans like reacclimate, right? And it's such a insane experience that I really do think it takes a veteran to work with another veteran. Would you agree with that?
I would. First, Marc, thanks for having me on the show. And I know for me, yes, being a combat veteran and openly sharing my experiences of mental health and the things I'm going through, I do think and hope they're making a dramatic impact on other veterans and just other men in general, and men and women. I think that mental health is huge, but you can narrow it down to each one of those. The more of us that share our stories and what we've gone through, the more people that are like us is going to connect with and help.
Yeah, so let me ask you, because I'm just curious for my own, is it getting better or is it getting worse? Because it seems like from the news, you see both, right? You see that veterans are getting more mental health support than they ever have, especially post-Vietnam. But then also every once in a while, you see that they're really getting left in the lurch. So kind of what are you seeing out there? What is happening?
I can't help but reflect on my experiences. When I first got injured, I've spent a lot of time, I've seen a lot of therapists, good therapists, but it is never clicking with me because I mentally wasn't ready. And I didn't know that at the time until it finally clicked one day. And when it did, then my mental health journey began. So I think for a lot of, since we're talking about men's mental health, for a lot of men, it's recognizing that no one can come to you and fix your mental health. You have to be willing to take that journey with somebody. And when we take that journey, I know for me, it can be hard. It can actually put you in darker places than you already are because you're tapping into where's that anger coming from. And then in order to see it, it can be dark and saddening, shameful. I have felt worse during my mental health journey than I realized I was before, but I'm aware and know that it has to happen. So I wouldn't say that it's better or worse. I think we have a lot of men that need to realize what they're going through and realize that there is trauma in their life that needs to be addressed. And it's when we're willing to, just like they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Well, we got to encourage these men to start drinking that water.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And I find in my work with guys, it's it takes a rock bottom moment for men. I think we're not very proactive in our mental health at all. And I work mainly with civilians, right? So it's for a lot of the guys I work with, it's a divorce, or it's their kid hating them and disowning them, or it's a addiction, relapse or binge. There's often this moment, and I have to imagine, please correct me, with veterans, it's, getting injured, right? Or losing somebody, right? Or even just coming back after deployment, so what brings guys to therapy and mental health in your world?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like for me, like my injury or a divorce or whatever it is, can trigger that and cause that trauma. But even that sometimes just isn't enough because we live with it. We sit in it for a long time. Like I look at past relationships I've had that were failures because I wasn't doing the work with myself. And until you start doing that work and you start to realize it, that you see a difference. And I think the hardest thing is encouraging men to get that work. And sometimes when we hit rock bottom, we just want to quit. We just want to shut down. And because that's human nature. It's easy to just sit in it. You know what I mean? And it takes a lot of work to get up and get through that. And we can't do it alone. We cannot. We have survived as a species because we work in a group. Everything we do is in a group. We need our peers. We need our support of others, family, friends, community. We need that. And that's what we need to improve is our community and resilience. And just like you having a podcast for men's mental health, this is building a community and it's going to connect with a lot of men to find that help and be that support for each other.
Yeah, I mean, just preach to the choir, man. Like I agree, right? I think as men, we gather in teams, right? I mean, whether it's sports, right, or it's squads, or it's hunting parties, right? It's like we've always been in groups, and one of my kind of things that I bang, right? My drum is like every man should be in a men's group, right? Like be around other guys that are encouraging us to become better versions of ourselves, because like almost biologically, that's how we've done it. But modern society, we're so isolated. I mean, men are lonelier now than it feels like they've ever been.
Yeah. I think there's that fine line of what is masculinity, and I'm sure there's been, other conversations you've had with other men, the same thing. It's like, okay, where are we the defenders? And is it okay to be cared for? You know what I mean? Like I have a wife that, from childhood, I was raised under the mindset that I'm the defender. I have to be the man. You know what I mean? This and that. Don't show your emotions, whatever. Same old story. But now I'm 43 and I've realized that I've not been the best father, the best partner in relationships, or friend or leader in the community until I started to work on my mental health. Because you know what? There's a side of me that, yes, there's times I want to be the leader. I want to be the defender. But then there are times you need to feel safe and comfortable in your own home and in your own relationships to need that comfort, to be vulnerable. There has been, for me, building up my vulnerability has been the biggest test to be my mental health of anything I've ever experienced. And there's been times, more than once, I've had these emotions hit me. I've gotten better at crying. I hate to even admit that's a thing that I had to relearn to do. But now it is, and a good cry, oh my God, for the next couple of days, I'm like, I feel amazing. But what's been amazing is my wife has been the one that there's been moments the other day, about a week ago, I'm in the garage, she's on the treadmill and we're talking and I get emotional and I start crying and she jumps off the treadmill. She grabs me by the wrist and she drags me into the house and into my 17-year-old son's room. And she's like, see this? I'm getting choked up talking about it. Like I showed my emotions to my 17-year-old son and he is in this phase in his life where it's like, what fits, what doesn't, where do I fit in? And there's all this pressure of school and all this stuff. And we talked about it the other day. He changed immediately after seeing that side of me, that I can open up and then share that I do care, that I do love him, that it is affecting me every day. And I know I've not always been the best father, but I'm doing everything I can to improve. And that made an impact on him. And I am so grateful that my wife's leadership is what made that happen.
Yeah, beautiful, right? I mean, that's like perfect partnership. And what I love and I want to highlight for our listeners is like, look, man, I mean, you're a combat veteran, you've seen some shit, you're a certified badass. And the way you're talking about this is with strength and courage. Like that you can come on the show and you can say like, yeah, you know what? I haven't been the best dad. I haven't been the best husband. I've been the best man, but I'm trying and I'm working. And you're saying that with conviction, because I think like you were mentioning a little bit earlier, is so many guys fall into a shame hole where they feel that they haven't been the best. Because look, we all have stuff to learn, but then they don't move forward and they don't get up and they don't keep walking. So my hope is that in listening to you, they can be inspired to like, it's okay to not be perfect as long as you keep improving. Right? And I think that's masculinity, is like wanting to be better.
And I'll be the first to admit that the shame that as you work through your mental, and this is for anyone that's just now starting their mental health journey, when you start to become aware and you start seeing the person you've been in your life, now you're going to see the worst in yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you have to remember that not everybody is remembering all those negative things, but you will hyper focus on these times in your life. You're like, who was I? Why was I doing that? Or now I know why I was doing that. But that shame, when I say that mental health can put you in a dark place, this is me being brutally honest. I have had moments in my mental health journey where I've been so shameful that I'm like, then why am I here? The kids and my wife would be better off if I wasn't here. Now, those moments I have moved past, you know what I mean, with the help of my wife and my counselor and more mental health work, to realize, okay, look, they do need me. Losing me would put them back into a downward spiral that they don't deserve. What they do deserve is a father that says, you know what, not everything's been right or perfect, or, you know, I haven't been the best dad, but I'm working on constantly improving. And I'll tell you what, I see it in my teenage kids. They admire that. And everyone in your life would prefer someone who has had a shaky past, but working on improving, than losing you completely. And so I know there's men out there that have felt that or are going to feel it. And I'm just someone to say, hey, look, there's a saying, every storm runs out of rain. I have had going into a mental health journey is going into the eye of the storm. But the only way you can heal is to do it. Because like where I am, you know, with that darkness, but then experiencing these better emotions, as I see the world in a different way, which is crazy. I was telling someone the other day that, you know, we're all aware that we all see things differently because of our perspective of life. But to see a change in my own perspective is crazy. It is absolutely insane. And I've enjoyed it, and it's terrified me at the same time. But it's something that is definitely necessary.
Yeah, I want to put a pin in now. I want to get back to that. But I want to ask you about the darkness and the pain, right? Because I think for most people doing mental health, just like you're saying, and I think especially for men, it's like you open up the box and the first thing that comes out is pain, rage, hatred, shame. I mean, all those like negative emotions because they're loud, right? And like, yeah, then you get to the ones that they talk about, like gratitude and, you know, presence and love and joy. But everyone I've worked with, and me personally, the first one, it's like pain, you know? So you can say that, because I don't think therapists talk about that enough, right? We say it's going to be all positive, and it's like, it usually gets worse before it gets better, you know?
Yeah, you know, as I was saying that, it makes me think of, as an amputee, I get calls all the time that they're like, hey, you know, at the local hospital, there's, you know, like there was a girl a year or two ago that was a shark attack victim. She was about 12 years old, down in the Gulf of Mexico, lost her hand and her leg. Well, I, you know, talked to the family, everything, and that happens a lot. And what I've always done with people, it's more likely with adults, I say this, but I'm brutally honest. I say, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to suck. Losing a limb is not normal. It's not fun.
There's no way to positively spin that, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I remind them that every day you get through those struggles, the better they'll get. And now it's been 19 years since I've become an amputee, and it doesn't faze me. Like, I've worked through it, and life is enjoyable, and it's not messing up my day. But I tell them it's going to suck. And that's what mental health is. It does. Like, and I've always told people that, you know, there's always that fear, that joke that people say is like, well, I don't want to see something that my brain has decided to block out. Well, it's more one of those people that have had those experiences where I'm like, while doing like EMDR, for example, with my therapist, that has brought, and I'm like, did this realization, like, oh my God, like that explains so much. And it's like this painful truth of my childhood and this trauma that I had been blocking out. But you know what? I always tell people, one, I'm one of those people who saw things that your biggest fear of being, you know, mistreated as a child. But you know what? it made me feel better. It's more to recognize it and then explain why I did certain things in my life, and now I can improve on them. So it's worth that little bit of pain. I would compare it to going to the gym. Hey, a good workout will hurt, but you know what? That's why you're there. That's what makes you stronger. So I think if we put in that mindset that, you know what, I'm going to go into this pain, I'm going to go into this darkness, and I'm going to come out better for it. Because then you're kind of tapping into that masculinity side. It's like, hey, I'm going to be this man that attacks and finds my vulnerability. So then you're playing both sides. So I think that that's a good way of us to look at it.
Yeah, I use the same thing with some of my clients, right? Where it's like, you're facing your inner demons. Like, it's courageous to do it, right? And it's like, I think once you do this work a little bit, you see those kind of like big bully guys as being not that strong anymore, because you can see how afraid they are. Versus someone that sounds like yourself, like you went into that darkness and you actually forged, fire, right? You forged yourself in that darkness and became stronger because you dealt with the thing that your whole brain was organized around not stealing.
Yeah. And it's, until we face it, I think, and it's funny, I haven't thought about this in years, but the movie, it was about Bruce Lee. Enter the Dragon, I think, was one of his movies, but there's a movie that's about Bruce Lee's life. And in the movie, it's that constant demon. And at the end, he fights that big samurai that is his inner demon. And I'm just now realizing what a deep movie that was, because it was specifically what we all face. And I think that one thing that a lot of us men tend to do is we constantly compare. We compare ourselves in the gym. We compare ourselves to who other people are dating or how much money someone has. And we compare other people's trauma. And that we should never do, because my trauma is my trauma. Your trauma is your trauma. You and I, Marc, could go through the exact same thing and it not traumatize you, but it can traumatize me. And so our reactions to it are going to be different, and how we deal with it are going to be different. And one of the things I did that was very eye-opening, literally Friday afternoon, I'm in New York. I flew from Alabama to New York, and I love ChatGPT. I'm just gonna go ahead and admit it. I am a big fan of AI. I tell people I don't think there's anything to be scared of. AI only knows the past. AI is not as creative as humans, so there's something to be said about that. But I love to use my ChatGPT. In fact, my kids make fun of me. I talk to it all the time. I call it Chad GPT. He's my friend. And I'll have him cite things or find me. Hey, find me a video on YouTube that explains this that I can watch. Whatever. Well, the other day, on the plane, I'm on the Wi-Fi, and I pull up ChatGPT and I start typing into it, and I start describing a 23-year-old male, so a child in my life as a 43-year-old, a 23-year-old child, going through combat, experiences with a young wife that's unfaithful, and then being injured, losing an arm and a leg in combat, waking up 6 days after this injury, unaware of it, on Christmas Day, and then having that wife also leave him. And so I put this into ChatGPT. This is me actually describing my own life, a small portion of my own life. And I said, where does this fall in trauma from a scale of 1 to 100? And it said, that's a 95 out of 100. And it pointed out not just the physical injury, but the mental, when you have the person that's supposed to be your closest companion turn their back on you, and what it does to you. Now, when I read that, I sent it to my wife. My wife and I have been married for 3 years. And she said, how did that make you feel? I said, it validated a lot of things that I thought I shouldn't have been worried about. That it was just, oh, what an interesting story I have. And then to have ChatGPT say, no, this is real trauma that this person experienced. And it actually was a weight off my chest just to have the validation. I sent it to my AI, but whatever it is and I realized, because I was constantly comparing my trauma, and you can't do that. Do not compare your trauma. Dive into your own trauma and realize things. And, while I'm on this rant, I'm sorry, Marc, we talk about therapists. As a man, those past therapists that I had, and when I say this is just my own experience. I have a lot of negative experiences from childhood up into, like I just said, having a wife leave me when I got injured. I have had a lot of women treat me in a way that I have not, the young me should not have been treated. And I react because of that. So my past therapists were good therapists, but they were all females. And I didn't know it at the time, but I never really opened up. I was never vulnerable. And in fact, I've had therapists in the past, they're like, "Are you sure you need to be here? You know, you're doing really well." But it wasn't until one, I was ready to really do the work. And two, I have a male therapist now and I relate to him. And when I say this isn't being sexist. It's just my own trauma. Because I tell, if you're a female that was, sexually abused by a man or had men do things in your past, well, you probably don't want a male therapist. And so I tell that to a lot of men and women, you have to find the therapist that works best with you. And I'm sorry about that little rant that I had to go on. It was in my head. And I felt like I had to share it, Mark.
You're marketing my own company, right? I mean, that's what we do, right? It's like we work all with the therapists, and we're more like blunt than typical therapist, right? Because I think as men, like, we can be crude, right? We can be violent. We have aggression tendencies. We have sexual tendencies, right? And like, there are some things that women can't quite understand about the male experience. And that's okay. There's tons of things that I can't understand about the female experience, right? I just never get it, right? It's like completely different.
There's exceptions. Yeah, there's exceptions to every rule, but yeah, I would agree that there is like you said, like you and I personally, yeah, I have no idea how the female brain works. I can read books, I've done things, try to improve and share and listen to my wife, share her examples, but like, I'll never know what it's like to have a period every 28 days and have pain. You know what I mean? And so I have no idea what that's like, so I'm not going to speak on it.
Right, exactly, right. And I think the same for men is like, we need guys that can like handle us, they can challenge us. I think a lot of men bounce off therapy. I'm curious what you think about this, because they attract what we kind of call like validation therapists, right? They just like say, "Oh my God, that's so hard. Yes, it's so tough to be you." And I think it can instill like a victim mentality in some guys. Whereas what I find what men want is like, yeah, they want to be heard.
I think that the only way you can correct anything is to lean into how your personality works. And sometimes, like when it comes to like in the past, mine has been, there's a lot of pent up anger, and it's been growing since childhood. Like I even had my older sister, we share a lot on our mental health journey because, we have our own childhood trauma within our family and then our own personal experiences. But she had mentioned the other day to our mother, who is struggling with understanding what I'm going through. And my sister straight up told my mother, she said, that angry little boy that we had? Well, then we gave him a gun and sent him to combat. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that have come out of this, and I was like, wow, what a great way of pointing that out. And when it comes to, I'll say, my parents have their issues, severe issues, from being narcissists, alcoholics, to hard people. But I also am aware that I cannot change my childhood. I cannot change who my parents are or their past. In fact, I sympathize in what they went through. I see why they're like they are because I know what their parents were like. And with that, I'm in a stage of my life where I've had to accept that my parents didn't do it right, but then also know that they didn't know what they were doing. You know what I mean? And just like I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning of my children's lives. Now, I think the difference in parenting between me and my parents is I'm showing my children that I want to improve. I want to improve our relationship. I want to improve my mental health. I don't think it's too late for my parents in their 70s, but I also think that they're going to have to make that decision. They're going to have to figure that out. And with that, I have found a place in my life where, you know what I mean? Like I'm still in contact with my family, but I pick and choose how I do that and how it affects my day to day, because my job right now, I have 4 children and a wife. They're my priority. They're my priority. And then everything else is the family and friends that are outside of that. And I explained that the best way I explained it to my 15-year-old daughter was because we were talking about my side of the family. And I said, I picture it like I grew up in a family where we were just covered in mud. You know what I mean? That's just who we were. We were covered in mud. Well, now I'm trying to wash myself. I'm trying to clean myself off of this mud. I still love my family, but I don't want to be in their mud anymore. So I'm cautious of how much time I spend with them, just so I don't get covered in that mud again. But again, I love them and I'm aware of what they're going through, but I also have to take care of myself and clean myself because I want to make sure my kids are cleaned. And when I told her that, she was like, "Oh my God, that was amazing. You come up with that yourself?" I did.
Let me ask you, because some of our listeners might relate, like, what is some of the mud you got covered in? Maybe some of the beliefs that you got as a kid that don't serve you now, or some of the experiences that you had?
Well, I'll tell you what, experiences from your past, I've seen videos and other speakers talk about how, our brains are incredible. As children, we find a way, our brains find a way to survive. And it's incredible. For example, one of the things I did in my past, I was a performer. Like in order to get any attention, I had to perform. You know what I mean? Like I had to have the jokes. I had to put on a show. And now I'm an adult and I realize, oh my God, I do the exact same thing. I go, I put on a show. I've always had friends say I have to be the, known in the room when I show up. And then I go and I crash. And I will crash and then go through this days of depression before I come back out and do it again. And it's a reflection of my past. And one of the things I heard someone say is, it's incredible what our minds can do as children, but at a certain point, you have to tell yourself, you have to thank your younger self for what they were able to do and accomplish, but it doesn't serve me now, and I need to change that and improve it. So I need to start making a better balance of, I don't have to perform for people. You know what I mean? Like I love people and I love being an excited person, but I don't have to perform anymore and go through those highs and lows. I'm looking for that middle ground, and that middle ground has really been good for me because then those highs I have that are super exciting, I have those same highs with anger. And so since I've started to balance that anger has brought itself down. And I'm more aware now when it starts to anxiety. I didn't know what anxiety really was until 2 years ago, Mark. I thought when I thought it just was a sign that I needed to go do something dangerous or inappropriate. And now I'm like, wait a minute, no, this is my body telling me that I'm about to react and I need to calm myself down. Like I don't even listen to the same music because I tend to, the other day I walked into a shop and it was some young guys and Tupac was playing. And I'm like, oh man, I used to listen to Pac back in the day. I said, y'all don't even know. And then when I got in the car, I pulled up Spotify and I put in, a Pac album and didn't even get a second, 30 seconds into a song. And I love his music, but I was like, nah, I'm just not feeling it. I don't want to get myself worked up. So I turned it off. And it's like, that's me being aware. That's me being aware. Because in the past, I would have listened to it. I'd have gotten fired up. I'd have loved it. Who knows? Then somebody would have pissed me off in traffic. And then I'd have been angry and overreacted because, I would overreact. Like if someone cut me off, 9 times out of 10 when somebody cuts you off is on accident. But I took it personally. Like you've insulted me and my family. You know what I mean? Like I'm coming for you. Yeah. And it's like, what in the world? Now I'm in Jersey, not New Jersey. I'm in Long Island where, hey, not judging anybody, but the drivers around here, I told somebody the other day, they're like, the drivers here are the worst. I said, no, it's a bunch of me's driving around. This is how I used to drive, but I don't let it bother me anymore. This would have triggered me every day I was on the road. But now I just, hey, if somebody gets in, hey, you got it, man, whatever. I'm just trying to drive. You know what I mean? And it's because of my mental health work that has improved so much. And it's that facing those fears and that darkness like we were talking about.
If you're enjoying the podcast so far, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us to reach more men and inspire them to become the best versions of themselves. Thank you for your support. And now back to the show. Let me ask you this, man. Like, how would you personally reach a guy that is like you right in your 20s? Because I think there's a lot of guys out there right now, right, that are feeling disaffected. They're feeling lonely. They're feeling like the economy is worse than it's ever been, right? They're not making any money. There's a lot of guys I think are feeling like left behind and really pissed about it. Like, what would you say to that guy? How would you reach that?
I'll just use my 17-year-old son as an example. Because, we're maybe talking about men that are older and have other stresses in their life, but I'm going to use my 17-year-old son who is graduating high school as an 11th grader with his associates already. This is a kid who has worked extremely hard to be where he is. And now he's considering, we're going to look into, so my oldest son just joined the Coast Guard. Well, now my son, Jack, who's 17, wants to be a doctor. And I told him, I said, if you go in the military, they'll pay for all of that. So now he's looking at, maybe even Coast Guard's Academy or something like that, which is really hard to get into. So there's a lot of stress on him. So that's what I wanted to point out. Now, my 17-year-old son is a lot like me. He doesn't have a good relationship with his mother, and that is shown in certain things that he does, and he loves fitness. You know what I mean? He goes to the gym. He wants to feel like he looks good. He wants to feel strong. I completely understand that. When I first introduced the thought, this is a couple years ago, of therapy to him, he even said to me, "You understand, the gym is my therapy." I'm like, "Buddy, you sound just like me." You know what I mean? So then I use the gym as an analogy because, hey, you know what? If you have someone who is going through trauma, they're usually pretty much aware. If you say, "Hey, you should probably go see somebody about your mental health." "Oh, I know. That doesn't mean they're going to go. But a lot of times we're in denial of our trauma. And so I tell people, hey, if you take two people, one's a bodybuilder, one's someone who's never worked out a day in their life. And you're like, which one of these guys you think needs to do some bicep curls today? Well, you could easily be like, well, the guy who's never done it. Well, the bodybuilder would say, well, no, I've got to go do some bicep curls today or I'm going to lose what I've got. So there's this mindset of, I don't care if you think you have trauma or not, because mental health is as important as your physical health. And we should constantly, as men, be working to improve ourselves, our bodies, mentally and physically all the time, to be our best selves. That's the only way you're going to be the best leader within your home, within your work, within the community, is taking care of yourself. And I tell that to people to try to get them to see that, hey, taking care of your mental health is what is important for you to survive as a human. We can look back at life and criticize and this generation, that generation. Look, the reality is, look at look at technology, look at our phones, everything we do, social media, all this stuff. Look, the generations that are coming up now, you can criticize them or you won't. There is more stress and pressure on them today than there ever was on us. You look at the average working man in the 80s versus today. There is less pressure then than there is today. I meet kids who are going to school and working my son works 2 part-time jobs and doing all this school. And I meet a lot of kids like that. You know what I mean? Because they think we have to constantly be moving. We have to constantly be doing something, this, that, social media, and this. That's going to affect them. So I am constantly trying to just reiterate that if you want to improve who you are as a person and have the best tools in your toolbox, well, you want to be strong both physically and mentally. And when you can get that through, because a lot of men, they want to be their best selves. We want to be our best, but it's saying, hey, do the work. Surround yourself with others who are also doing the work. You're the sum of those that you surround yourself with. Now, I'm not saying you have to cut off old friends, but adjust what you're doing. I quit drinking alcohol 2 years ago, just for a little while. Then I decided after 6 months, oh my God, I feel amazing. I'm not going back. And I'm not criticizing. Hey, I have friends of mine that drink and I hang out with, it's okay. But the group of people that I used to spend a lot of time with, doing a lot of drinking, I love them. They're my friends. We stay in contact, but I don't see them like I used to. I've moved on to other things. You know what I mean? I'm doing different things. And I'm in this world now of mental health, and I love connecting to other people that are in that world. And that's who I surround myself with. And because I do that, it helps me work on my mental health. Because look, it's not natural to just wake up and do all that work yourself. It's hard. You shouldn't do it by yourself. We talked about it earlier. It's about community, feeling like you're part of something. So surround yourself with that community and do the work to make yourself better. if that makes any sense. That's what I try to get through to men is like, hey, there's a lot of reasons why you can do it without feeling like you're just asking for help.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, right? Because I think we're talking on the topic is like, what would you define as modern masculinity? The four kind of pillars I pull on is strength, courage, mastery, and honor. And I think you're talking about some of that, right? Like, I think courage is big, right? Like facing those demons, right? Being vulnerable. For me, that's very courageous. I think you just talked about mastery, right? Like, get better at shit. Doesn't really matter what it is. Like, get better at shit, whether it's the gym or it's an art or it's a craft or it's your job. Like, get better at shit, I think is very masculine. Well, what would you say is modern masculinity? Because I think it is changing, like you're saying, with technology and the way our culture is going. It's not just like being a big, tough guy anymore,
Yeah. No, I think there's something to be said about men who show you can see, like, you may not just see them crying all the time, but you see that their emotions are there, that they're intact with it. In fact, for example, if I saw two men have a disagreement and one of them, show his rage and the other one show compassion and control and able to walk away, well, then in the past, I would have been like, yeah, that big guy showed him. But now I'm like, no, that man lost his cool. When we lose our cool, I'm not going to say we, I'm going to use me as a comparison. And when I lose my shit, pitch a fit, act like a child, that is me acting like a child. That is me flashbacking back into that child who could not control his emotions. So now I see that as a lack of masculinity because it's a lack of control. So I think that one thing that is critical in masculinity is emotional control. So I think that is what I personally view as masculinity now. Now, this coming from a guy who still has to work out, you know what I mean, and feel like I look tough. Like, I'm not completely healed. You know what I mean? Like, there's still a side of me that has to, I'm always wondering, do I come off tough? Do I look tough? You know what I mean? That's always in my mind. But learning to control my emotions is where I want to elevate myself. And that's where I want to be as a man. I want to be that man that is comfortable and doesn't let things affect me and get my anger going. Because I tell people all the time, we've all heard it. When someone upsets you, your anger only affects you. It doesn't even affect them.
Yeah, totally, right? And like, kind of building your thought, it's like having the right tool for the job. I think it's very masculine, right? It's like there's sometimes, with your children that you have to be compassionate and gentle. There's sometimes someone treating you where you have to be tough and strong and intimidating. But it's like you said, it's that level of control where it's like, okay, I can decide what tool I want to apply instead of like just being angry all the time. It's like, if you're a hammer after a nail, right? That's not control. That's just one thing.
Well, I'm gonna compare it to, I always think it's funny whenever I compare my children to pets. I'm not doing that. But, like when it comes to, they say that like if you have a dog and another dog or something that is, a negative that is coming at you and your dog, and you stand between your dog and that threat, it makes that dog see that you are their protector. So in moments like that, yeah, you want your family to know that you are their protector. I'm here for you. But then on the other side, they need to see that vulnerability. They need to see that soft side, because like my children range from 20, 17, 15, and 2. I'll tell you what, my 2-year-old son, he is just a beaming light of joy. And the way we are raising him, he is the sweetest child. And my wife, he loves to clean because I don't. My wife's trying to prevent him from being like me. You know what I mean? He's just a caring, loving child. But that is not going to mess up who he's going to be as an adult, as a man. Because I was with, here I am, I'm in town. And last night I was having dinner with my 20-year-old son. And I told him, I said, what's funny is Amanda, his stepmom, the mother of my 2-year-old, I said, Amanda, I think, is trying to prevent Matthew, the baby, from being like you and me, talking to my son, Colston. And he laughed. I said, because it's obvious that even at 2 years old, that kid loves speed. He loves adventure. He loves things that there's something inside of him that feels all funny when he does things that are risky. So yeah, he is a sweet boy, but there's this side of him that he wants to take risks. And my older son is the same way. And we laugh at it because Amanda I love that he is a sweet boy, but he has this side of him that is going to be there. So we all have this personality inside of us that doesn't go away just because we're kinder and sweeter people. You know what I mean? It's there. I can be a gentle man and still defend and protect those around me. And I'm learning that now. As in the past, I didn't understand that. I thought that rage had to be on all the time. But now I'm learning that it doesn't. In fact, real control is knowing when to evaluate and use that.
Yeah, when to switch gears if necessary, right? Or like how to master different exercises and knowing when to do what.
Amanda, just tap on that real quick. Like, it is really hard to understand that switch. Like, I'm still trying to learn it. So it's like, it's understandable for men to be like, well, that's not easy to do. No, it is not. So when you do master it, that is something to be proud of.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same as like learning how to power lift and learning how to swim, right? It's like, it's two different skill sets, but like they're both useful, right?
I love that.
You know, so I love that. I love that you're talking about fatherhood a lot, because I do think that there's a trend that I'm trying to promote too, of like making fatherhood cool again, you know? And I think that is like such a place where you can hone being a masculine, right? Because like, what is more masculine than being a father, right? I mean, that's it. So I wonder if you could talk
That is our
about
job.
that directly. Yeah, that's on top, right? I mean, that's it. You're a patriarch. So like, yeah, if you could talk about that a little bit more of your journey around fatherhood. And it sounds like you really do engage with your kids, you know?
I do. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I have my good and bad, but I do. I am very engaging with my children. I try to be as active in their lives as possible. I try to be as understanding, you know, because I don't ever want to be that person that says, you know, well, you don't know what it's like, or what do you have to worry about? Look, I remember what it was like to be a teenager, and it was miserable. You know what I mean? Like, the emotions and the concerns and not knowing who you are in life internally, the changes that are happening emotionally, physically, like that is a lot of stress. And then but at the same time, I feel like if I don't address it with my children and show them the right path of working on themselves, then they'll just end up going through the exact same recurring traumas and bad decisions that I made that could have been prevented if I'd have started this work earlier. Now, I have another friend of mine. I'm 43. He's 53. And the other day he made a comment. He was like, oh, I wish I'd have started this a long time ago. And I was like, you know what? But aren't you glad you're starting it now? You know what I mean? Because you could be 60, 70 and still not doing this work. So at least we're doing it. And that's what I remind myself, is like, at least we're doing it. But I want to be, again, a leader for my children. That leadership, again, doesn't turn on and off. So I'm a leader at home. My wife's a leader at home. We all have our different positions of where we fit in. And one of my jobs as a leader in my family is showing that, one, we can make mistakes and we can correct them. And two, we should always be self-improving.
Yeah. Like always being better and always holding up that mirror. You know, I think like a lot of guys, we don't get that mirror, right? I think, especially if you're a tough guy, right? If you look like a badass, people aren't going to tell you how you're affecting them because they're kind of afraid of you, you know? But I think, again, as a masculine thing, like, you know, it's almost like the scientific method, like getting a clear view of who you are in the world is really valuable. I think you can get that from, you know, a friend or a therapist or someone in a men's group, right? Like you can really improve as a person. So I'm curious for you, yeah, like what mirrors have you gotten in your life?
Well, you know, it's funny. When I hear the word mirrors, I think of, you know, a mirror. And one of the things I've struggled with, and I think a lot of men do, is, you know, that slang term, like for me, a bigorexia. You know, what I see in the mirror is not what everyone else sees. Because I can see a picture of myself and be like, oh, that's what I look like. I'm doing well in the gym. You know what I mean? But I look in the mirror and I don't see that. You know what I mean? And then during my moments of shame, I don't like who I see in the mirror. And so then it's okay, if I don't like who I see in the mirror, do I stay mad at that person or do I try to improve that person? And I think that that's what's critical and that's what's important is, yes, facing that mirror and saying, okay, Noah, what are we going to improve? How are you going to be a better father, a better husband, a better man in the community, whatever it is? Let's fix this. So I think sometimes, yes, facing that mirror is, it's easier for us to help others than it is ourselves. It's easier to see other people's problems than to see ourselves. It's easier to find solutions for other people than it is for ourselves. So actually facing that mirror and looking at yourself as someone else and saying, okay, well then let's face this. And then you're doing this all for yourself. And that's what's important, because like when I look back at my life, look, I have 2 divorces under my belt. I'm not proud of those things. They shouldn't be there. It's because I didn't do any work on myself. And I was attracting people that were in a dark place as I was. You know what I mean? Like they weren't in good places. I wasn't in good places. Neither one of us should have ever been together. Now, I have my children and I'm grateful for that. But I've been honest with my children. I'm like, listen, you need to work on you before you can ever be of any service to someone else. You cannot get into a partnership with another person unless you know who you are and they know who they are. Because look, we have too many people, I did it, young marriages, and guess what? They don't work out. Statistically, young marriages do not last. Now, some of them do. There are a lot of people that have come up in good families or have done a lot of hard work at a young age, and they get married young and they're happy, and it's amazing. I'm not criticizing those people. I'm not saying that. Or anybody that is married and has children and they're young. I am not attacking you. I'm saying that, look, if you're already there, you're in it, do the work. That's the only thing that's going to improve your relationship. And if you're not in a relationship, don't be, too often we're like, oh, I'm single. How long am I going to be single? Who cares? Work on you. You work on you and you'll find that person. I cannot believe that I ended up with my wife, Amanda. I didn't deserve it because I was not ready. I was not healed yet. She's the one who has put me on that path. And now I'm aware and incredibly in debt to her, which I love. That's how you should feel about your spouse, that you worship the ground they walk on and you want to just treat them like your queen. I was not in that mindset before, ever. I have a lot of mistakes in relationships that I caused because I was not happy with who I was. And I don't deserve Amanda. She struggled with a lot of my anger and darkness in the beginning of our relationship. But because she stuck with me and helped me through and got me on this path, now she is my everything, because I would not be who I am. My children wouldn't be on the path they own if they weren't for her. And I am incredibly grateful for that. I go on little tangents. I'm sorry, Mark. I just start talking and I get excited.
You're saying a lot of good shit. You're saying a lot of good stuff. Let me ask you this: like, how do you or other people you've worked with, like, how do you stay motivated, right? Because I think similar to the gym, like consistency is key, right? With any of this stuff, you got to be consistent, and there's going to be failures, and you got to get back on the horse, right? So, like, how do you keep that consistency? Because the mental health journey, man, like, it's lifelong, right? And even if you don't want to hear that, it's like at least 2, 3, maybe 5 years of hard work before you get to a place of real change. I mean, it is slow as fuck, right? So how do you stay consistent in it?
My first thought is one that I believe in to a certain extent. And I learned this in the military, that false motivation is better than no motivation. False motivation is better than no motivation. So sometimes you got to fake it to make it. Now, there's a fine line. Like, I don't think, like, you shouldn't take that wholeheartedly and just be faking everything, because then you're not doing the work. But sometimes putting in, just constantly just moving forward and telling yourself, look, I have to do this. Helps. And one of the things that I have said in the past that I think is crucial, and this goes back to me being talking about my children, you have to find something that is bigger than your fears. Our fear is what prevents us from doing anything, whether it's, going to your boss and asking for a raise, or applying for the job you really want, or going to the school you want to go to, or starting the workout you want to start. Fear. But when you have something that is stronger than that fear, and me is my family, so in those moments when I don't want to go to therapy because I'm just like not in the mood, I don't want to go through whatever we're going to talk about, I remind myself that this is bigger than just for me. This is for my children. This is for my wife. So when I put it in that perspective, sometimes, I'm still not happy about it. I go. I remind myself it. So it's all about having something that is stronger than your fears, because it's scary. Oh, I overthink before I get to the therapist. And we joke about it when I get there. I feel like I have to be prepared, like I'm about to go give a speech, when that's not how it works. You know what I mean? I go in and things just start coming. You know what I mean? And I mentioned EMDR earlier. For those of you that aren't familiar, eye movement, directional, I don't know what it stands for, but it's the eye movement that goes back and forth. And they discovered that it brings things up. And for me, when I've done it, for the rest of the day, I remind myself, my God, I'll just be like, babe, listen, I just had this realization, and it all come from EMDR, but it brings up painful things. So more than once, I'll admit it, I will go to my counselor with our intention of doing EMDR, and I will start talking about something to manipulate the conversation to a point.
You're like, we're not going there. Don't pull out the flashing lights. We're not doing it.
Yes, I do it sometimes. I do it. And then there's other times I'm like, I'll just come in and be like, all right, don't let me talk. Let's get it started. You get me talking about what we're supposed to be talking about, because I need to be improving. So to answer your question, a little bit of fake motivation just to always be moving forward, not too much, just enough to just keep moving forward, but then find that thing that is more important than your fears. You know what I mean? If you don't have children, maybe it's who you want to be in the future. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a desire to be this person that is XYZ in the community or whatever it is. But find that thing, write it down, stick it on your mirror in the bathroom, on the door, your fridge, whatever it is, so that you're reminded constantly, this is why you're doing it. Because you'll be surprised what you'll do for others.
Yeah. And I think men need that. I'm curious what you think about being a veteran, right? But I think men need like a banner to fight under. We need a cause greater than ourselves. And I think we're almost hardwired to like respond to that, to want to belong, to want to be part of like a crusade or part of a mission.
Yes. And I think that once you find that, for me, my family, my unit, that is my team, that is my mission. My family, take care and love. Just like what I said, I told my 20-year-old son, buddy, I don't care when you're 60. I am your parent. I am here to care for and love you and nurture you. And as long as I'm alive, I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? That is my job, because I want him to feel safe and my family is secure. I told him, I said, I know you're not going to call me every day, because he'll go days without calling me or texting me. And I'm like, have you heard from Colston? And my wife's like, I talked to him the other day. I'm like, well, at least somebody's talking to him. But I told him, I said, that's okay. If I want to talk, it's my job to stay in contact with you. It's my job to be reaching out to make sure I'm still here. I've still got your back. I am always here. You know what I mean? And so as a parent, that's what we need to remember. Let your children know you're there for them all the time. And that is a sign of masculinity. That is a sign of leadership. That is a sign saying, I stand here to protect and defend you. And I'll tell you what, what's more masculine than that?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I think that is a wonderful, powerful statement. And yeah, we got to end our show on that one. That's a big, finale. No, this went by really fast. Love to have you on again in the future. Can you say a little bit about where people can find you online if they want to learn more about you and follow you?
Marc, thanks for having me on this podcast. This is awesome. But you can find me. I have my website, noahgalloway.com. I am on social media. Instagram, because I'm 43, is my biggest thing. I feel like that's my age group. It's Noah Galloway Athlete. It's a certified account. I am on TikTok. I should probably do more with it. I know it's a popular thing. I'm on there. I post stuff. You'll see fitness. You'll see my family, different things like that. I'll share parts of this podcast. But that's where I am. If you want to find me, reach out to me, whatever it is. I love my social media family and anyone that wants to be involved and follow me and the journey I'm on. I appreciate it.
Great. Yeah. All that stuff will be in the show notes. So definitely give them a follow. And please, do those socials with us, like, share, subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. It's really helpful to get the message out and to reach young men that need to hear people like Noah talk and inspire them to be better, grow, and really face those demons within themselves. So Noah, thanks again for being on the show.
Marc, thank you.
And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week, another episode of the Men's Therapy Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to visit menstherapy.online to learn more about the work that we are doing to support and inspire men. Until next time, keep moving forward.